Hi there. Welcome to The Path of Purpose, a podcast where we, Desiree and Adam Davis, share our journey as high school sweethearts navigating the ups and downs of marriage and life.
Over the years, we faced some real challenges, moments that tested our love, our faith, and our commitment. We've learned that love isn't just a feeling, but it's an action, a choice you make every single day.
Exactly. And we're here because we know we're not alone. Marriage isn't always easy, and it can feel overwhelming when life throws curveballs. But we also believe that through grace and hard work and a whole lot of faith, any relationship can grow stronger.
So guys, that's why we started The Path of Purpose. We want to help other couples by sharing the lessons we've learned, what's worked, what hasn't, and how we've managed to grow closer despite the challenges.
Yes, so whether you're newlyweds, seasoned partners, or just looking for some encouragement, we're glad you're here. Together, we'll dive into real life topics, from communication and forgiveness to overcoming trials and building a faith-centered marriage.
Well, hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Path of Purpose with me and Desiree. We appreciate you guys following along and just listening to us. I think today Desi had a topic on her heart. She's going to kind of talk about depression and how we handle that, not only as individuals, but couples as well. So I'm going to turn it off to Desi and let her jump in.
Thank you. I am terrified to talk about this, so I want to be very raw and vulnerable with everyone. This is not an easy thing for me to talk about because I have kept so much of the real me hidden from the world, and God is now calling me out of that and to be able to share my story. It's very hard for me to understand why someone would want to hear my story. But as we do this podcast, we're learning that there are people that are really hurting and really struggling, and they're seeking to find someone that they can relate to, real people. And so this is going to be my journey through depression and also how I have found healing in that. I have notes here. So if you see me look down, because it is hard for me to talk about this, I wanted to make sure that I don't forget really important things. And my husband's going to help me with that. So welcome, you guys. Depression, it to me is one of the biggest unseen battles and one of the most lonely, selfish diseases that I feel is like out there. You get so self-consumed that it is so hard for you to see outside of yourself, and the impact that it has on others as well. So many people struggle silently, and I was one of those people that I would struggle by myself. My husband didn't even know the degree to how bad it was. And where I learned that why I struggled in silence was because of a little girl. I believed that my emotions were a burden and my emotions were not as important as other people. And so one of my biggest things was to make sure that my little brother and my little sister were okay, and my mom was okay. So even if I felt a certain way, I would hide those really hard feelings, the sad feelings, the anger. I would hide it and not let it come out. And eventually those emotions that I buried for so long, it came out, and I was not understanding because how I gauged it was there was this joy inside me and it had left. And I would wake up. I remember, and I'm back to that joy inside of me now, but I would wake up every day, even in the worst circumstances, but that joy was never taken. It was always there. I was so excited just to start the day. And that joy was definitely God within me. And I slowly started seeing it leave. And I could not understand, like, no, like I don't even know how to live life without this. And it's like when you had met me, you're like, there's this freedom to you. And I started losing all of that. And my depression started in 2013, I think it was. I looked back on like letters and stuff the other day, and I've kept like all kinds of stuff. And it was about 2013 that it started. And I remember how I went to go ask for help. So and remember I went to you and you didn't understand what was going on at all. I didn't. And you said like, this is not you. Like you're pitying yourself. Like this is not you. And I took that pretty hard. And then I was like, okay, well, I can't talk to my husband because he doesn't understand.
Well, and it's one of those, diseases that, it's hard to explain. I mean,
It
you
feels
can,
impossible to explain.
because it's hard to explain, it's hard to feel that anybody else understands.
Mhm.
And, when in reality, people can't fix depression for you.
No.
Now, do you think that if you would have addressed the depression sooner, um, do you think that things would have been as bad as they were? Or do you feel like you tried to address it, but you couldn't get the point across and people just didn't understand? So you just fell deeper and deeper and deeper into a depression?
I felt well, couple things. So when I had asked you and I got that response, then I went and asked my mom, and my mom was like, you need to be put on medication. It's like, that was not the answer. I was seeking the outside world to help me with my depression, and I was not getting the answers that I needed. And so there was a time my husband and I have worked together like our whole working lives, and his dad owned an RV business and I was the bookkeeper there, and I was upstairs a lot by myself, and I found an opportunity where I could leave, and my little brother was living with us at that time, and I went home, and I had a full plan of just unaliving myself. And um, I walked through the door. My brother was there, and I was in such a dark place that I didn't even care that my brother was there. And I remember sitting on the ground about to do it, and you came walking in the door, and I texted you, I think I love you. And then 2 seconds later, you came walking through the door. And it was the first time I was exposed. And I did not understand what was going on. And I had always kept my emotions hidden, especially from my siblings, because I needed to be strong for them. And you went and told my brother. And I was furious, but it's exactly what I needed. Because the look, and I still, the look that he gave me was, I can't lose you. And so I then became very, very desperate. And I don't know why, but I just thought that I could handle everything myself. And I had a very strong relationship with God even at that time. But I never thought like I could go and ask him for help.
No, and
I
that's
didn't know I could ask God for
well,
things.
you were you grew up in an environment where you had to make things happen
Yeah.
and you took on responsibilities that weren't yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, having those responsibilities as a little girl,
Yeah.
I mean, psychologically, that's going to affect you and how you develop and how you go through life. And so, I understand. You say I walk through the door. Well, as your husband, I have intuition and I knew you're not okay.
Yeah.
And so when something's off, a little flag pops up in our head. Well, I mean, I feel like,
We weren't even married at that. I don't even think we were engaged at that time.
no, we weren't engaged.
Mm-mm.
But something wasn't
Yes, we
right
were engaged. We were
because,
engaged.
it was this bubbly Desiree and then it was a sad Desiree and then it was a cold Desiree. And
Yeah.
so,
I became
paying
so
attention
dark.
to that transformation, it's confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And, being you can't, because I've been there, you can't express how you're feeling. And somebody could feel the exact same way as you. But, depression has a way of telling you you're alone.
Yep.
They don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it just, all these things have kind of built into this, depressive state that I have seen. And so, anyway.
Yeah, and when I remember, like back then I was like a researcher too. Like everything I was researching, and I was like had this big awakening, and
That was your Illuminati and stage.
and that also, no one talks about that, but when you start seeing the world, like the truth, that you spiral into a depression just with that alone, because it was like this world is so broken, and they're so and
deceived.
Yeah,
The
and it's like,
deception.
and God started talking to me a lot about how deception is gonna happen. And luckily I feel very blessed because at that time I had your dad to connect with, like a real human in life, and he helped really guide me. He gave me that room to learn and to just let God work in my life. And he gave me that opportunity to be able to do that. So I'm so I think if I would have had any other job, I would have been fired. One, I would have been fired by my attitude for sure. Like, let's be real. And so, but when I finally was like, oh, I can go to God for this. And God told, I remember laying on the bathroom floor, just crying. I don't think you were even home. I was just crying, which I did a lot of behind closed doors. And God said, your mask is coming down. I need you to observe your thoughts. Do not get lost in them. You created this out of protection. And at that time, I did not realize how deep the mask was and really what that meant. It's been over the years, and actually really the last 7 months that I have been really able to unpack and why I had a mask in the first place. And for me, what is so important is that I did not have the space in my brain to be able to allow God to breathe life in me. I was so distracted by the thoughts of ending my life that it used up all of my energy, and I couldn't get to the root of the problem. And I was so against medication because I grew up with addicts. And so I have had a very, very bad view on medication. And it wasn't until I was put on medicine that I realized that I needed that. I'm not going to be on this forever. I better not be. That's like that is, nope, it's not happening. But the fact that I don't have these thoughts that are like, you're not important. You're a burden. Your son would be better off without you. You're making your husband miserable. I don't have any of that. So now I've been able to really unpack and be able to get to the root of why I had the mask. And so a lot of times a lot of times people might use like the medicine as a crutch, but this is the medicine that I am on, and I'm on Zoloft. I'm actually getting ready to be like at the max dosage, which I'm having a hard time with because that really sucks. And it also feels like the world's way of doing things. But and but God said no, like that this is okay. Your spirit is going to heal you. The Holy Spirit is going to heal you. You need to ask for that help and that revival. And so that's the place that I'm at now. But
Let me ask you a question about that. Being this podcast is kind of about us and our journey as well.
yeah.
I know that you were very cautious of medication,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of refused it.
Yeah.
Because who I am in our relationship, in my opinion about, hey, what do you have to lose? Is that helpful in that situation? When you're in depression, you feel like you're not in control, right? And you feel like no one understands.
Yeah.
And so, as your husband, when you're facing this battle that I may not understand, but encouraging you, that the help, like you told me, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
The support behind that, I feel like it really let your guard down, and you were able to release the pressure of that decision to both of us and not just yourself. And, I really noticed that, once you've released the pressure that you put on yourself, that wasn't all of yours to share, but because of your environment, it was just pre programmed. Once you got to break that code and you really got to let your guard down,
Mm-hmm.
let your mask down,
Mm-hmm.
or if that's what you're saying that God told you, I was able to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And as a marriage, I feel like that's important to discuss. I mean, it's like I struggle with that too. That as the man, right? I don't want to burden my wife or my family,
Mm-hmm.
with the problems that I faced, and it just how it is being a guy. But in your marriage, you were kind of pre-pro. You were very masculine and very strong and very
Independent.
independent,
Yeah.
and you carried weight you didn't need to just because there was no one else there to carry it. And I really saw a change in the depression when that mask started to come down. You weren't any happier. You were still in your a depressive state, but we were able to talk about it, and you were able to hear me, right? I mean, it's like within marriages you have all of your you know trusts, distrusts. Depression makes everything 100 times worse. So the fact that you were able to, because I feel like, between you and God, or, whatever you owe that to, you were able to eliminate this mask, or it's like quitting, cigarettes cold turkey. You were able to just, what I got to lose, and just completely transform the way that you received, information. But I remember you telling me that, I feel like I need to, in this depressive state, I need to observe my thoughts. Like what you said,
Mm-hmm.
God told you I needed to observe it and just let it happen and don't get lost in it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't say that that would help anybody, but you took that being in a depressive state and you applied it, which isn't easy to do. And so, I feel like, from a marriage perspective or a support system perspective, right, we may not know what's going through, or you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
But for you to be able to receive, right, was huge. I mean, I saw a huge improvement, and it's like only then was I able to figure it out too.
Yeah.
You know, you're in depression and you don't understand, and it's like, well, at that point there's this wall that I can't cross.
I created the wall.
I know that, but it's part of
Well,
depression.
okay.
It's part of depression. So when you're in that depressive state, right, you feel like you're in it alone. And you're in this box, this sinking ship.
Okay, but also, like, this is really important to bring up because when I went to not knowing how to say this or how to express how I was feeling, I was met with you're self-pitying.
Yeah.
So in my head, like, well, Adam is the closest thing to me. He doesn't even understand. And so I built the wall. Like, there's nothing you could do or say that is at all going to help me in my situation.
Yeah, I know. And in that depressive state, right? It's like, if I would have said that, you would have, I've always been direct with you and you've always been direct with me. And so it's like in that relationship, it was like, well, hold on a second. This isn't you. You're being very victimized.
Yeah.
You're pitting yourself. Like, where did this come from? It was a means of understanding, but because you were already in this state of mind, it didn't help the situation.
And depression, like you talk about absolute victim mentality,
Yep.
and unfortunately you get so stuck in that
Mm-hmm.
that you can't see anything else but your own feelings. And it's at least for me, like I was very self-absorbed in that way. Which was very new because I'm a very selfless person.
And I want to touch on that because we're gonna have a lot of viewers that are watching this that may be going through depression, right? It's okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's part of the emotion, and you know, you can listen to 100 different videos and podcasts and whatever about depression, so you're not in it alone. Well, it doesn't change anything. And so I think one important thing I would like to ask you,
Mhm.
right? Because you've made this 360 degree, which I want you to continue sharing, is what would you have needed
God.
in the beginning? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm
What?
talking about from your support system. So
Oh,
you sit down with your husband.
yeah.
What would have been more helpful that your husband would have done? And we'll talk. We'll
Yeah.
touch on that in a minute. But
Oh,
yeah, I feel like that's an important part to discuss because, you know, at least with your story, you know, your depression was, I mean, it was full blown. It was 120 out of 100. Not a lot of people know about it because, you know, we just kept it private. But because we're going to have this conversation,
yeah.
it's going to open some of the viewers' eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that's something I'd like to discuss once you go through your, you know, your transformation.
But I think that's no, we can talk about that now because I think it's important. Yes, because so what ended up happening is I built this mask as a little girl because I had fear instilled in me that if I were to tell the truth, I would be separated from my little brother and my little sister. So I was functioning out of fear. So I created this mask. I created this whole facade. And it's real easy for me to do because my outward appearance. People just look at me and they're just like, he's just cute and bubbly and all this. And it was really easy for me to do that. I made the outside look presentable while the inside was completely dead. And so this mask, and God had started talking to me about that mask. And he said, every emotion that you are feeling, this is normal. And hearing that was like, I could breathe. Like, this is okay. This is part of the process. You are in a revival. Like, you're going to come out of this. And it was him telling me that my depression will ultimately be a gift. And I changed how I viewed my depression. And how I view it is I don't know how I could be the woman I am today without the gift of depression. The empathy that I have, the awareness that I have, the security that I have in my relationship with God, the new identity that I have. I just wouldn't be the same person. And so it was really and me starting let me what was the question you had asked me?
Support.
Oh,
So in that
yes.
instance, when you came to me about your depression,
Yeah.
what would have been more helpful as a husband to you?
A hug. For you to listen to me, and even if it didn't make any sense, and not try to fix it, because I knew that this was a personal journey between God and I, and that no one else could fix it. But
there's people out there that don't have that direction.
and if you do not have a relationship with God yet, then it's very important that you learn more to listen. And another thing is, don't make your spouse's depression about you. Don't make it about you. It's not about you. It's about them.
I think from a man's perspective, because we want to fix things.
Yeah.
Right. So, if your wife or even a friend brings something that's, affecting you negatively, our code is, okay, well, what can I say or do to fix it? That's how we communicate. And what I have realized on a non-religious aspect of depression is just to listen.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean,
know.
it's hard hearing your spouse in that depth of a low. And it's hard not to try to fix it and research it and try to come up to some resolution. Because, reality is there isn't a resolution. All we can do, or, and I'm talking to the husbands or the boyfriends or family members or something that are dealing with this, is sit with them. I mean, I remember I would just sit with you. You'd be crying and I would just sit there and tell you I love you. And I remember when I was going through the depression, just your presence. I mean, you couldn't fix it for me. But the fact that you entered that low with me and we shared that experience, it was soothing in a sense that, don't think a lot of people would understand. And so, my biggest walk away in that situation is we can't fix it. But
And
we
it's
can help.
okay. Yeah.
But it's important for the people going through depression. It's hard because that mindset, that feeling, it's not just in your head, it's in your heart. It's just this anchor that you're falling and falling and falling, and it's hard not to focus on it.
Yeah.
But I would encourage, anybody, hey, you need to be honest about it. Men, it's hard because we can't, there's no support out there for men.
It's actually heartbreaking.
But it's important because, just to have someone come sit with you and even talk about something else, get your mind off it for a minute, right? In a very comfortable environment. I mean, I saw it help you. I know it helped me. But then you're talking about medication, right? And we still talk about this to this day, that you still feel, how am I allowing myself? Like, this is not okay. Like, it sucks on medication. When you're in pain, when you go to the hospital and you break your leg, and that you're in there and they're putting the cast on and you're just in this astronomical amount of pain, would you accept pain medication?
I would not have. Probably not.
Yeah, you would have. You would have accept pain medication if you were in surgery or something. Would you allow you to feel everything?
Oh, no.
Exactly. And so in a sense, that's what this medication has done for you, right? You're accepting that Novocaine or that Percocet or something that helps with the pain so it's manageable. If you're in so much pain, I'm talking physical pain, your mind can't do anything else. It takes control. And so in depression, it's such a deep pain that it's hard to understand. So when you can take something, right? I was not an advocate for medication, right? I'm still not.
Yeah.
I'm all about trying everything first, but it's an avenue. But the fact that, that medication took a little bit off of you, okay? To where that extra capacity of your mind, you could focus on healing
Yeah.
and life, that has turned into this step.
I know.
And so you have this little, I'm not even going to say it's good. It's this little box of no depression, okay? That is so minute, but you can feel it when you've been living in it in your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gives you a little chance, not of hope. I'm not going to say of anything positive, but to occupy your mind with something else. And so some people, right, when I was in my depression, I occupied myself with hobbies, right? I want to escape this. I want to go do something extreme to where my mind is focused on what I'm doing and not how I'm feeling. And so, that medication, I feel like in your journey, is it gave you that free space to heal. And, it was a good thing. And so there's a lot of other people out there that feel the same way. I'm embarrassed to take medication, right? How's it going to affect me?
Is it just numbing?
Yeah, this isn't an answer. And it's like, you could be right. But look at it as pain. You've going in for surgery, they cut your body open, they, sew you together, you wake up, you're going to be in a lot of pain. Would you take the prescription pain meds and take them so that you can at least be comfortable? It's essentially the same thing. And so, coming from the opposite advocate,
I know.
right, of just ignorance, you don't understand until someone goes through it.
Mm-hmm.
And, people argue with me. I'm sure I'll get some, kickback about what I'm saying in this podcast. But in this instance, it was helpful.
And it felt right. Like that is what is so weird, is that this just felt like the next step.
Why do you beat yourself up still about taking medication? Because I know that
I beat myself.
You've gone higher and higher in your meds because of how you were feeling.
Yeah, I'm almost at the max dose. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, what if when I come down off of this, what if I'm just numbing it? And then God's like, no, stop. Don't go there. You are working and you are healing. All it's done, it's kind of like when I got an epidural giving birth to Bowen. Mm-hmm. It just took the pain away for the contractions. Mm-hmm. That's all it did. I still brought life into this world, and that is what God is doing to me. He is breathing life back in me. That joy that I had, that forever joy is back. And it when he had talked to me, like, I was so good at faking it. Mm-hmm. So good. And my distraction, your distractions was hobbies. And my distraction was work. And I just immersed myself in that. And it wasn't that
your distraction added a whole nother aspect of stress.
Oh my gosh.
On top of but that was at a point where, right, you just wanted to do everything yourself and you wouldn't listen.
Well, this is what I would negotiate with God. Like, I would negotiate. So God tells me, I'm gifted Bowen, and God told me he's your medicine. I'm like, is he though? Like, is he? No, I need to still work, And I ended up getting so distracted by work and the chaos that either the people of work brought, the chaos that just work brought in general, that I prolonged my healing. And what would happen is I would show up to people as this absolute broken person and the worst version of myself, having expectations for other people on how, wanted to control how they showed up in my life so they didn't hurt me more. Like I wanted to control, no, you can't say that. You can't do that because if you do that, I'm going to spiral for 5 days.
Yep.
You can't do that. Like, and so I was like,
You had to emotionally be in control.
yes.
And that was so that you could be in control of situations.
Yes.
So that it didn't affect your emotions.
Yes.
Yep. And you're talking about, you know, the anarchy or everything you had to deal with, when in reality it really wasn't that big of a big deal.
It wasn't.
But because you were in that mindset, it made it tenfold. So
And
your
I
reactions and
people.
you hurt people and stuff
Mhm.
like that. You know, the reason I was talking about, you know, the medication is I feel like it's important that, you know, give yourself grace. That's what I keep telling you.
I
That's what
know.
I've told everybody. Give yourself some grace. You know, this is a real part of your life and it's something that you're going to go through. I struggle the worst. I don't give myself any grace.
No, you don't.
And it makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah.
But in this instance, right, because you have, you know, basically took a step back. Hey, babe, I'm not in control anymore. I don't know how to help myself. Like, I'm at a point where I want to die. You know, I'm going to make it happen. Only at that point, I felt like things started to turn around.
Yeah.
And this was prior to medication. I mean, you went on medication shortly after, you know, your mental vacation.
Adam calls my hospital stay that I went on a mental vacation. It was definitely not a vacation, but
you know, but this all started getting built up. And we all have the power to get through it.
But we don't have to do it alone. And that's the lie.
It's a season, but it's, you know, you believe it when you're in it, you know, oh, this is going to be my life for the rest of my life. And then people end up killing themselves.
I know.
You know, and it's like,
I don't know if you're allowed to say that. Maybe
but when you're in that mindset, there is no hope.
No.
And so it's like, the fact that, you know, there you have a couple avenues. First of all, you need a support system. Some people don't have a support system, which is awful. And so, I mean,
or a relationship with God. So my heart
I'm talking on a non-religious aspect.
I know, but if they don't have support and then they don't have, I don't understand how anyone can get through depression without divine intervention. I truly don't understand it because like to me, it feels impossible. I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. I don't have to understand. But it's truly like if you don't have a support system, you don't have anyone in your life that has gone through depression.
Well, and you know, God can work through other people, so you don't necessarily need that relationship to get through it.
But you gotta open your heart.
You do. You have to open, and that's
to be able to
really
receive.
hard to do.
It's very hard.
Depression, and it's like, you know, people that don't have a support system. It's like, man, that breaks my heart. Like, it hurts. Yeah. It hurts knowing that people literally go through this stuff alone. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I want everybody to know that I'm available. I mean, I don't care any time of the day. I mean, I'll come sit with you. I'll do whatever. I mean, I don't even know you. Mm-hmm. But that's how big of a deal it is. Watching my wife go through it, you know, and going through it a little on my own, that there's always someone available. Even not who they are. You may be uncomfortable with them. But it's like,
yeah, and even like I remember, so really anyone that I went to, so I remember when we went to my older brother's wedding and I was in the car with Dad and Dad said to me, well, I was trying to like express my depression and I don't remember exactly what. And Dad says to me,
oh, why are you sad?
Why are you sad? You have a beautiful life. And it's like, that, okay.
That's number 3 of one of those things you should never say.
Yeah, right? That, and also this is so important because there's a lot of people and they mean well, but they will throw scripture. They will throw God. Like, you're not Christian enough. I don't know how many times I have been told I'm not Christian enough.
Pray,
I'm
repent.
lukewarm. Pray. You need to repent. All of them had good intentions. They all had great intentions. They don't want to see me suffer. However, I spent my days on my knees crying and praying and asking for help.
Well, essentially, they're telling you, well, do this on your own. Not, can I come over? Can we just sit down and can I pray for you?
So,
and can we talk?
This,
you do this, you do that, you do this. And it's like, when you're in that mindset, you don't have any room to do anything else.
You know, one of the biggest, not only was I dealing with depression, but then I dealt with grief from losing my little brother. And I remember the moments that I had called. So it was my little brother and my dad on the same line. And I said, Dad, you've got to do something. Robbie, you have got to do something, because what is going to happen if you end up in jail or you end up not here? I'm going to have to take responsibility for your son. Do you understand the pain that I'm going to feel? And the response was, I'm doing everything that I possibly know that I can do to provide for my family. But it was in those moments that I really realized that I was trying to control other people's actions so I didn't hurt more. I feel things so deeply that I didn't want to hurt. I couldn't handle it. Like, one more thing, gonna throw me over. And and it was shortly after that, I think it was a month later, I got the worst phone call of my entire life that my brother had been shot. And I didn't answer the phone because to my dad, because he kept butt dialing me the entire day. And I thought he was just accidentally calling me. So I didn't answer the phone. He left me a message saying it was emergency. Like, I had to call him back. And I called him back and he's like, your brother's been shot in the head and the chest. And I remember falling to the ground. That was the moment. That fall to the ground was the moment that my life literally changed forever. And I had this void after losing him that I was just getting by through life until I could see him again. I wasn't able to be present for my son. I wasn't able to be I was there and I was involved and still a very good mom, but I wasn't present in those moments and creating, I can't remember so much because of all I was going through, but with depression and then on top of grief. And that was the turning point of when I really saw, it was like I had glasses on my whole life and I saw people, like the reality of the people around me. And I started really reevaluating my life after losing my brother and becoming a mom, because after my brother passed, I found out a month later that I was pregnant with Bowen. And during my pregnancy and during losing my brother, I didn't have anyone check on me to see how I was doing. And the night that when I tell you, invest in your family, not your employer, I can't even say it strong enough with more seriousness, because I was by far probably one of the best employees. I produced, I worked really hard. The night that my brother had passed, I got a text message from a staff member asking if I was coming in the next day. And I could not believe, and I wanted to quit right then. But I responded back, I won't be in until Monday. And then I came in on Monday and I was handed a stack of papers. Literally, I walk in, sit at my chair, stack of papers. This is the first thing I need you to do. Mind you, these women knew my depression because I was honest with them of what I was going through. And they knew the death of my brother. Could they understand how much he meant to me? No. It's impossible. They couldn't. Because I also kept a lot of what I did very private too. You know, they didn't know my whole childhood or anything. So, but that was like, and I mean, I've received an apology for that stack of papers being on my desk. And so like, I don't hold anything with that. But what happened was no one acknowledged, here again, reinforcing that no one acknowledged that I was hurting. So I felt so alone. And then I went and asked, and see, this story my side has never been heard. So I'm nervous about talking about this, but I wanted to become more. I wanted to become more in life for my son. I wanted to leave a legacy. I was looking for any way possible that I could become the best version of myself. And long story short, my employer did not support that. And so I was faced with a decision. Either I continue working for this employer or I leave. And I thought I was going to stay there forever. I thought I found my forever place, my forever people. I regret this every single day. I gave 3 months notice. But this was where I was negotiating with God. Because God's like, no, God's telling me you need to leave. And he tells me, I hear conversations that you don't. You need to leave. And I'm negotiating with him. So what I do, gave 3 months notice, thinking that God is going to say, no, you can stay. And that did not happen. I obviously ended up leaving. And I was so scared to leave because I saw how the employer treated other people that left. And I did not want to be treated that way because I knew, try to control it. I couldn't take that pain. Well, then I went full-time as a realtor, full-time. And I started growing like crazy. And, but then I got so busy with work that I was distracting myself all over again. And, I was in therapy at that time, and gosh, she's amazing. If anyone is in the Tucson area, Angela White, she is incredible. And she really helped me. She helped me pinpoint the relationships that I had and the ones that I had to cut off. And when I would talk in front of her, she would, I'm telling you, if I ever blow up on TikTok, that woman, she's coming with me. Like she is the reason. My little sister tried to get me to be on TikTok forever. And I'm like, no, because I didn't understand it. It was a homework assignment after my therapy session. She said to me, I love the way your brain thinks. She's like, you need to be in a panel of psychologists. And I'm like, is that good or bad? She's like, good.
And you needed to talk on stage.
Yes. And I'm like, you're just saying that though, because you're my therapist. She's like, no, Desiree, you have a gift. So I am challenging you. This is your homework assignment. I need you to create a TikTok. So what I do, I created a TikTok. I didn't know what I was doing whatsoever. And the TikTok that I created ended up being so eye-opening to the people that were in my life. Why? Because I created a TikTok. These people did not know how TikTok worked. And what ended up happening was there was a viral sound. And I did the TikTok off that viral sound. And because I was trying to gain followers, I was trying to gain a following. And so I was researching the algorithm, and that was the trend. And, but there was some animosity between an employee that had been at my previous job. And she commented on that. And my response was, I was thinking of you when I made this. And what happened was, instead of asking me, hey, why did you make that TikTok? Was this about me? They assumed why I was thinking of that person, or they just completely assumed. I went into, at this time, you actually left because you were also at the employer as a realtor. You left to a different brokerage, and I wanted to stay. Like I said, that was going to be my forever place. I had no intentions of ever leaving, and I was very honest, right? And I was in there working because I was a transaction coordinator as well. And I was working, and I got pulled in the office, and I got accused of making the TikTok about her.
And
And
lying about it.
and completely, and she's like, I don't believe you. It's like, I don't know what to say to get you to believe me. And she's like, and by the way, no one else in the office believes you. And she made sure to bring up one person that meant the most to my heart. She doesn't believe you either. And I wish I would have walked out. But you know what I did? I sugarcoated everything. I tried to defend myself. I gave her the time of day. And she said, you know, Desiree, one day you're going to be a leader. And this isn't it. What you're doing isn't it. And I'm like, okay. And so I am being severely misunderstood and severely judged. And then I start like talking to you, and you're like, babe, why did you even stay in the room? Why'd you hug her at the end? Why did you do that? I'm like, I don't know.
Well, this goes on and on because I've been telling you to
I
leave
know.
prior to even your brother passing.
I know.
And so, what you realized.
Yeah. So like yes. And then I like noticed that I was deleted off social media. And I'm like, what is going on? And so
all through the worst time.
Through the worst time.
Yep.
The time I really needed them. And I saw them differently than they saw me. And it was very apparent, very obvious. And what ended up happening was they said, well, you turned so negative, I had to delete you. And I said, if you were my real friend, why didn't you come knocking at my door, banging it down, saying, this is not the Desi I know. What's going on? No, they abandoned me. Mm-hmm. They made up lies. And then now guess what? We are forever banned from that place. And I wanted to go back so bad. And God said, stop opening a door that I have closed. I have heard conversations that you have not. They're not your people. And that was hard because they were my people.
You thought.
I thought. And I had, so in depression, not just fighting depression, but grief as well, I had the loss of my joy ripped out, my brother.
People who you thought were your friends.
People who thought were my friends. Yep. All gone. All stripped away from me. And then God gave me a beautiful gift of Bowen and got me through very hard times. And he will forever be the best gift that has ever happened to us. And God was right. He is my medicine.
But through all of this, you were getting broken down.
Broken down. Completely.
Your life that you had was getting completely demolished.
Mm-hmm.
And to a point, what was the low of the low?
So here I am again trying to play savior and control things, and ended up starting my own company with a family member. And getting into this, it was kind of like negotiating. And God told me, like, this, you need to do this. But what ended up happening is I was taking on more responsibilities. I was doing the exact same thing where I wasn't allowing help. I wasn't allowing, I wasn't releasing what God wanted me to. I'm still negotiating. No, like I can't burden my partner with this. My business partner, I can't, she's already going through a whole bunch of stuff. I can't burden her with this. So what had ended up happening? Now she's carrying a burden by herself. Because what ended up happening is
Yeah, but it was counterproductive. So you would, completely unfair to her, right? You just blow up because you'd hold everything in because you don't want to quote unquote burden. And then,
I had weekly blow ups on her.
which is 100% related to you and not her.
Yeah.
And it was part of the depression and part of the stripping. So you were basically, you just filled the void of your other employer with more work and more stress, against, right? I mean, my advice, but I don't control you. And I think against God. I mean, he told you to take a step back.
And I was like, but I can't. What do you mean? You want me to just, first of all, the thousands of dollars I have invested in this and the time I have and my relationship, what's going to happen to my relationship? I care about her. She's fighting a battle too.
Mm-hmm.
And what, I'm just going to now let her fight that battle alone? And he's like, she's not alone. She has me. I am healing you, but you cannot be in the picture. You get in the way. I'm like, God, be honest with me more, I guess, God. Jeez. So I stopped negotiating with God. And what I started hearing him. And he would say, allow your husband to protect you. Allow him to make decisions. Because I wouldn't allow you to protect me or make decisions. And once I started that, I became free. I became so free that my joy came back. I became the wife that.
Well, we need to go back because there was a bottom to all of this.
Oh, shoot. See?
So
that's why you remind me.
You had this business.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrible living with you.
Mm-hmm. Working with me.
You were stressed. You would just blow up. Your son would see it. And, it got to the point where, I mean, I didn't want to abandon you, but I have to protect my son too.
Yeah.
And, as a husband and a father, that's a position you don't ever want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
But it hurt because you see this woman that you love with all your heart, that this is not her, right? But then you have this other little one that you love just as much that isn't subject to this.
Yeah.
And so, as a husband, it puts you in a tough position. And it came to a point where, okay, we can't, Desi, I mean, Bowen can't be around you. I mean, it was that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And no one knows this, and it's embarrassing, and I'm not bringing this up to embarrass you, but that's what depression did.
So I had rage depression, and it was by the help of you really trying to figure all this out.
Well, and this was a growth prior to all of this. And, I was observing, right? I mean, I still don't feel like me telling you, oh, you have this was helpful in that situation, right? But I knew that you were a researcher. And so you would take what I said and you would, whatever. So you did. But you had this completely emotional breakdown simply based on what you believed that wasn't true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened? You ended up in Sonoran.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was that day I was working in the morning. I wake up at 4:30. So I wasn't getting sleep.
You weren't?
I was going to bed at midnight, waking up at 4:30, every day to work, because not only did I own a business, but I uh, I am a loan officer, and then I would help you with real estate stuff, marketing and things like that. And a mama and a wife. And so I had all this pressure. So I tried to really try to be as balanced as possible. Well, I was really irritated because I think the dang printer wasn't working or something. Remember?
All this pressure that you wouldn't release on
Yes,
anybody else.
yes. Never ask for help. Yeah.
And wouldn't allow anybody else to help you.
Yes, because everyone couldn't do it as good as me.
Exactly.
Yes. And so, or they would cause more problems. And it's like, when there are problems or mistakes that happen, that is opportunities. Like that is so beautiful,
Yeah,
because
but patience gone in this situation to
yeah,
where
well, hold on, because the opportunities, like, so say for instance, I didn't want your help on something because you would make a mistake, but I put this like pressure on you, because you needed to come and be perfect at it, and you had this pressure, like you couldn't even enjoy helping me because of the pressure that was on you. But like, if I would have just allowed you just to function and what you were doing, and a mistake happened, then like I had the opportunity for something so beautiful. Actually, I'm going to share this story because this was very eye-opening to me of how I was getting in the way of my business partner. So I had everything, all the details like planned out, the colors, and she was making a Valentine's Day soap, and she was making a pink one. Well, she felt like God was telling her to make something else, a different soap. And when she brought the soap over, remember, I lost it. I'm like, nothing matches. This is not what we agreed on. And you changed it. Like, how dare you? You just caused so much work for me. But you know what ended up happening? That soap became our top seller. That is one of the most favorite soaps.
well, your depression, your got in the way. It wasn't just affecting you; it was affecting everyone around you.
Yes.
It's like your business partner was so creative,
And
and
she
that
didn't know, and she didn't know how creative she was. And all God would say is, bring that alive in her. Help her bring that alive. And every single thing that she created with her own hands, without any of my input, has been the top sellers and still is to this day.
yeah.
And so I had to remove myself, and I knew, but I did not know that I was about to also lose the business that I had been working on for 3 years with her. And what ended up happening was that morning I was printing off labels, and I was hearing Bowen cry or something. And I was because I couldn't emotionally regulate my emotions. I was so irritated that, of course, you're not going to control his emotions. And so it doesn't bother me that I had a blow up. And it's like, how nice of you that you get to go to work and you don't have to deal with a crying child, but I had to deal with a crying child all the time, And so instead of, I just blew up, and that was my rock bottom. I ended up blowing up, and I saw my son, and this is so hard for me because I know that I am praying to God that this is not a memory that he is going to look back on and remember me screaming at Bowen that, no, you're coming with mommy. You're not going with daddy. You're coming with mommy. And his scream, his terror, his fear that he had, that was my rock bottom. That was like, oh my God, you were doing exactly what happened to you as a child. And
but then your depression, your way out was what? Immediately.
So I ended up, so what happened was I actually ended up going to try to get a carrier because I just got Buddy, our dog, and I needed to work. And of course, work's on my mind, not the well-being of my child. And I went to go buy a carrier. I was so depressed. Like I was at my lowest. Like, what did I just do to my son? I've ruined his childhood, straight up in my depression. And I called, I ended up calling 911, but I meant to dial, and now I don't even know what the number is. The hotline, 988. I don't
It's the
remember.
suicide hotline.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter
yeah.
because it's an absolute disaster.
But I ended up calling 911, and they're like, well, we have to transfer you to the hotline. And so they ended up transferring me over to the hotline, and they had asked me, do you want to hurt yourself? And I said, I just need to be talked off the ledge. I am not okay right now. I'm not going to hurt myself. They asked me if I had weapons, and I said yes, but they're not in reach of me because I would conceal carry. And so I was just talking through what was going on. And to be honest with you, I don't really remember everything that I talked about in that, and how deep I went. But we left the conversation with, would you like a counselor to be sent to your house? I'm like, yes, absolutely. And
so they
I was and to her, I was like well enough to be let go off the phone. She trusted me enough, right, to be let go off the phone. She knew I wasn't going to hurt myself. Well, then I pull up, and then I see you and Bowen here, and you weren't supposed to be here. You were supposed to be at a listing appointment. And I'm like, oh my God, he's going to know that I called the suicide hotline. And once again, everything I tried to hide, exposed again. And so I had to tell you what was going on, and that these people are about to come to our house, and I don't know how to stop them from coming. And they end up coming to the house. And luckily, another very important thing that I'm leaving out is that my sister was trying to get a hold of me the entire time, but I knew that she would know something was wrong, and I didn't want to tell her that I called the suicide hotline. Well, she had a dream the night prior that I ended my life. And she went into town, and she stopped at our business, and she saw my partner, and was like, where's Desi? And she goes, she just left. I could tell something was wrong, but she just left. And so Jenny was in a panic, and she was blowing up my phone, and I wasn't answering. And she came here.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily she did, because she came upstairs with Bowen, and I was, thank God.
So basically the outcome was that
I ended up
we don't have to go into the issues that we've had with the healthcare system, but
I don't need to go into huge detail, but I do need to go into enough detail, because what happened in there is ultimately what led me to my healing.
Sure.
I went voluntarily. I went, and because it sounded like what they were telling me, it sounded like, yes, this is what I need. And I get there, and I was slapped with an ankle monitor after I'd already been in the waiting room for 2 hours. Then I was slapped with an ankle monitor, and I immediately was like, something's wrong. And so I asked, and the lady, I said, why do I have this? And she said, because we have to be able to keep track of patients, and it's a way to monitor, and patients sometimes want to escape and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, then it's like, I couldn't get rid of this feeling like this was not what I signed up for. And I ended up asking one of the nurses, because I was wearing a dress, and because there was men in there, that they made me change because my legs were exposed, and I wasn't in appropriate clothing. So I had to strip down. She had to check me that I wasn't had anything that could harm myself. So that I was already very embarrassed about, but I had asked her, and she said, no, honey, this is a holding place. Like, you're here for a minimum of 72 hours. I said, no, that's not what I was supposed to, that was not supposed to happen. And she's like, I'm sorry, honey. And I ended up, long story short, I signed an AMA form, I think is what it was called, that they could release me. I had to be seen within 24 hours.
It was a contest to release. So
Yeah.
basically, you want to say, no, I need to leave this place.
Yes. And so it was the following day at like 7 at night that I was seen by a doctor, and it wasn't the normal doctor. It was a doctor that was filling in, and he evaluated him. He's like, yeah, you don't need to be here. But I do have to release you against medical advice. And I said, that's okay. He's like, can your husband be here at 9:30 to pick you up? I said, yes. And I walk out, and 5 minutes later, I get pulled back in the room, and he's like, why weren't you honest with me? I was like, what do you mean? And he said, you didn't tell me you have access to firearms. And I said, but you didn't ask. I thought that you had all my paperwork pulled up. He said, I'm sorry to bring you this news, but I can't release you. You've been petitioned. And I'm said, by who? And I was petitioned. And what they put in the petition was completely false. So I was very honest with the thoughts that I had in my head. Not that I was actually going to act on it, but what the thoughts, just having those thoughts and like having a plan is enough for them to hold you. So here, once again, I am being honest, trying to get helped. Then I'm held against my will. The entire time I did not receive any treatment. All they were doing was medicating me. And I was attacked by a patient. They wouldn't believe me. And it wasn't until the last day that she witnessed me actually being verbally attacked at that time, but physically attacked. And remember, like when I was on the phone with you and that girl started throwing popcorn at me, and I was terrified. Like, I wasn't like my normal street Desi. I was so vulnerable. It was like I was a child all over again.
And do you feel that was the changing point?
That was the changing point. Like, I couldn't defend myself. Like, I was just taken. I was so in fear that I wasn't going to make it out alive, and that's how bad the environment was. And I wasn't going to be able to see my son go to kindergarten. And so I was just taking everything. And
so you were stuck in there for, what was it, 8 days?
no, 6.
6 days.
Yeah.
Finally, right? I had to lie to get you out.
Yep. And I had to lie that I was okay.
And now I'm affected because
Yes.
of this, which, we can talk about that
Yeah.
whole experience.
Yes.
Because people need to be warned about that.
But in that situation, I was brought back to like my child self. All this fear and everything, all these feelings that, on the outside, I carried this facade of you can't mess with me.
And you're in control.
And I lost all control in there. And and so then when I went in having this void, this just absolute void. And what I later learned on is that having a void like that only gives an opportunity that if it is not filled with the Holy Spirit, it's going to be filled with something that is evil and something that could take a stronghold on you. And that's what happened. That's what happened to me, long story short. And when I got out, I didn't feel the void anymore. I didn't feel the void of my brother's death. And I remember I was like, how is this gone? I don't even understand. And God told me, like, I was at my lowest ever that I possibly could be. And I allowed God to breathe life back into me. I allowed my husband to be able to come and protect me and make decisions that you knew needed to be done in order for me to heal. And God said, if you want to do it your way and the world's way, that's what the world will do. If you want to do it my way, you will become a new person. And so I am now a completely changed person, and I am living and walking in my purpose now. And all I know about my purpose is that I have a lot of love to give, and I want to give it, and I want to help people heal. That's it. I don't know where that's going to lead. I have a feeling it's going to lead somewhere big, but I have love.
So how, when you got out, what were the steps? I mean, how did things start to change?
The very first step that I had to do was I had to allow you to help me make decisions. Then I had to release ownership of the business with my cousin. And that was very hard because I knew the burden that she was about to carry. And she's still carrying it, and she carries it very, very well. And she's doing an amazing job. I had to come to terms that medication was going to probably be a possibility. And I had to ask God to teach me about this medicine and to help me learn more.
So was it like basically a lack of control? You released control completely?
I surrendered. I completely surrendered.
Yeah, because I feel like when you got out, I was allowed to help you. And, I feel like, in a marriage or a relationship, that has to happen.
Yeah. And I what's really sad is like looking back, it's like I see this a lot where a lot of women don't allow the man to act. Well, look at the world we live in though. They don't allow the man to be in their divine purpose and function in their gifts, and you be able to allow them. Like, I was keeping you from your purpose, and part of your purpose is to be my husband. And part of my purpose is to receive the protection and the love from you. And I was completely blocking that because I just wanted to control. And I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel loved by anyone. It's not that I wasn't loved. I just wouldn't let anyone in. Because if I let someone in, they were going to hurt me. And guess what happened? When I finally let you in, I was healed. But we live in a world where they're saying that men are stupid. Men, and by the way, I feel like I was a man hater too because of my upbringing. My mom and my grandma did not like men. And I viewed men very poorly.
Well, you came in very masculine.
But yet I was so feminine at the same time.
Yeah, but you were 2 in 1.
Yeah.
It's like you were this.
A dual person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you took place as to where I would be in your heart.
Yes.
And, when you basically broke down, right, and you realized that you were functioning out of your masculine side. I don't even like the way that people describe that process between men and women.
Uh-huh.
But, they'll say submit.
Yeah.
But it wasn't submit. It was, you're my husband. I want to hear what you have to say.
No, it was receive. Allow yourself to receive. Like, Des, you give so much. Like, let your husband love you.
But in depression, it's hard to receive anything. And so,
but it wasn't just depression. I built this whole.
I know, but we're talking about depression, and in that mindset that you've had.
Yeah.
And being in that mindset, it's so hard to receive.
And impossible. I wanted it. I wanted people to help me.
But
I wanted to be loved.
I feel like, depression, I don't feel like it's anything that you can cure on your own.
No, I
And
agree.
too many people have pride and feel like, I got this. And it's like, you're going to delay your healing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said about the support system, you need to pray, you need to do this. There's more destruction in suggestions from your support system.
Yes.
What we've learned is to sit in the sorrow. I mean, it's like I've learned to just sit with you and just talk to you
Or like one
because
thing,
I can't fix it.
yeah, and you can't. And one thing, like I always think too, like what are ways that what is something tangible like someone, either a spouse or if you're suffering with depression yourself, can take away from this? And it's like notice your spouse. Like if you didn't know, if you notice that I hadn't washed my hair, you know, volunteer to make a bath for your wife and wash her hair for her.
Observant.
Be observant. And if she's the one that does the grocery shopping or the cooking, say, I remember you say, I've got dinner. You do not need to worry about dinner. I have dinner. And that's one of the biggest struggles for us women, is finding out what we're going to cook for that night. You took on that responsibility of just cooking dinner, and that was huge. You would pick me up a soda. It's like it's little things. Or you would go outside. Like if I'm sitting outside, you would come outside with me and just sit with me. So I feel like there's the smallest things make the biggest impact when you have depression. And what it is and this is me, this is where I feel like love is not a feeling. Love is the act. It is the act of what you're doing. And that when God says love heals all, that's what I mean. The little things, the little love that you give,
Little actions
the
that you
little
can
actions,
give.
they
Yeah.
do not have to be big. You don't have to have all the answers. That is what breathes life back into them.
Well, and I think it's important to, coming from the spouse that, went through it, you're not there to fix it. That's important to know. You are not there to fix it. This is a time of your life that you're both going through. And it's heartbreaking. It's tough. Especially when you have children, a busy life, and you've got this spouse that's just done. It's hard.
Very.
It's hard to just be around them.
Mm-hmm.
But you're all they have. And, there's a lot of things that happen that you can't take personal, right? You got to give their spouse some grace. And just sit with them. I mean, we've both realized that. We've talked to people that have gone through this. What did they need? Mm-hmm. Just share time.
And I'll end with that. This is one of the number one tools that you don't need to have a connection with God. This was just a tangible thing, and I do not remember the woman's name, but she's amazing person. I saw her on YouTube, and she taught me this method where you count down. It's called the countdown method. So I had to force myself to take showers. I had to force myself to eat, force myself to get out of bed. I would do the countdown method. I would say 5, 4, 3, 2. On 2, I would start getting up. Say I was in the bath. I would start getting up and I was out. I made a commitment that as soon as I hit 2, I start the action of getting up. And so start retraining your mind. And I wish I knew who that woman was, but she's incredible. That was one tangible, that has been a tool that has helped me tremendously, is the countdown method, besides my relationship with God. But I understand that my ultimate goal is for people to see that Jesus is love and be able to experience that. But I understand you may not be there yet. So if you're not there, be gracious with yourself and know that there are tools like the countdown method that can just help you get through the day. And don't beat yourself up that you don't feel happy, you don't feel joyful, that you're feeling sad. Allow yourself to feel. Just allow it to feel. It's normal. These are normal human emotions. And if something happened to you in your past that you have kept hidden and in the dark, bring it to light, get to the root of it, and know that you were not just created by accident. Like, you are here for a purpose, and your life does matter. I know it's hard to believe that, but start believing it.
Well, and we can be a lifeline. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if you get to that point, I mean, you've heard this story. There's a lot more in depth, really awful things that have transpired through all of this that, we can share privately, to make you see that um, this is definitely not something to take lightly. And this
No.
is definitely real, but you made it through. And
And not everyone does.
and not everything works for each other, but all we can say with 100% certainty is, talk about it. Even if you're embarrassed to talk about it, about it in private with somebody, whether it be a counselor or something like that. Us, I mean, we've that's been a huge struggle in our relationship, and it took up a lot of years. But
Yeah.
you're remaining positive, and
And it's not just remaining positive. It is believing that I have a life worth living.
if we can do it, you can do it. We'll put it
Yes.
down it that way.
Yeah.
So
Thank you guys for tuning in. We so appreciate it.
we hope that this was helpful to somebody. This is not an easy topic to discuss, but I feel like in this podcast we have everything's raw and real. So you got a small little glimpse of a pretty big struggle in our relationship, and just know you're not alone. Our information, we can provide you our information. If you guys need anything, let us know. If you just want to talk about it, or even suggestions. I mean, we'd love to hear from people that have gone through this as well and what's worked for them.
Yeah, what are you guys and your relationship struggling with that you just seem that you can't find answers, And
We'd like to learn from you too.
yeah,
So.
we may not have the answer, but we sure can help, help you through it.
Yeah.
Listen, to be a listening ear.
Well, thank you guys for joining us with the Path of Purpose, and with me and my wife Desi. If there's anything we can do for you, let us know.